Who are you, baby?
Who are you? You're the member of European Parliament, sir. You're the important one. I'm just a kickboxer.
Answer my question, though.
Who am I? Well, I've managed to become a pretty influential figure online. I feel like I've been saying things that everybody has already been thinking for a very long time. I feel like I've said that water is wet in a time where it needed to be said. But I've become a massive inspiration to the masculine youth of the world, which has also painted a target on my back. So to answer that question professionally and compendiously, it's hard. I'm a kickboxer, I'm an influencer, I'm a businessman. I am a political prisoner inside of the beautiful country of Romania. I'm lots of different things. What about you? Because you were a YouTuber and now you're the most transparent politician inside of the European Parliament. So what would you say?
Well, today we're going to talk a lot about politics, about what the metrics is, because I think I see the metrics, I'm from the inside and I see what this, and I'm not sure if this metrics is like something organized. I think it's just bureaucracy. Wouldn't you agree with? It's just basically the system.
Well, that's a really good question because I've had lots of different theories thrown my way. They'd say that it's organized by these shadowy figures hiding in a room somewhere trying to destroy the world. And then some people just blame incompetency. Some people just blame bureaucracy. Some people just blame lots of different interest groups, which are all trying to constantly compete, which of course is human nature. The banks want certain things and the farmers want something else and all these different powerful lobbies pushing against each other. So yeah, what is the matrix? It's a really good question. And I guess the real question is also, because you're a lot deeper into it than I am, how deep really are you? Like how much power do they really have in that room? Is there another room? How does Ursula keep winning when no one likes her? Like what's really going on maybe behind that? I don't know, you know more than me. Is that an illusion? Is democracy real? Is the matrix something else behind that? The reason I would say, however, is that it is organized and it's not bureaucracy, is because there are some subjects which you simply cannot seem to vote your way out of. It doesn't matter what team you vote for, you cannot avoid going to war with Russia. Everybody is saying give money to Ukraine. Everyone in the population, every European doesn't want this. Everyone's saying no. But no matter which politician you get in there, all they talk about is how they must send money to Ukraine to fight Russia. Unlimited and unchecked migration is another one. Most Europeans want their country to stay like the country they remember. They want people around them to think like them, look like them, speak the same language. That's what they want. But it doesn't matter who you vote for. You can't seem to get it. There are a few subjects which are just beyond democracy, which would, I guess, beg the conclusion that it is being planned. It is being orchestrated by somebody.
Immigration is one thing that we are going to talk later about. But so you are saying that there is some people behind orchestrating this. Is this kind of something billionaires, George Soros, and all these types of people? I don't know, like that these people are saying?
Well, it's interesting because money is the simple answer. It's easy to say that they're doing these things for money. But at a certain level, and I can even talk from personal experience, and I'm really not that rich, money doesn't become interesting anymore. What becomes interesting? Power.
We're going to talk about exactly how rich you are later as well.
Well, we can give a number. But you're not interested in money, you're interested in power. What you want is people to do as you say, which is why you want money in the first place. So you can hire staff or influence elections, whatever it is. Money is power. When you get to a certain level, you're no longer interested in the money because the money is something you print. It's something you make up. It's imaginary. The money's not real, as we all know. So from there, you're primarily concerned with power over and control over people. So then you'd have to ask yourself, and if you don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, and I try not to be, I try to be very logical about these things. Who wants absolute control over the European populace? Well, the leaders of Europe, as well as the enemies of Europe. There's lots of people who would want absolute control over the European populace.
So you are talking about incentives now. Who has incentive to control?
Yeah, who has incentive and who has influence. So who can do these things? Who can influence the politicians to always, constantly, no matter what, dedicate themselves to self-destruction, dedicate their economies to self-destruction, to go to war with Russia, despite the fact their constituents don't want that? Who has that kind of power? Well, you'd argue, if I had to guess, It would be banking interests. It'd be BlackRock. It'd be the people who want all the Ukrainian land. It'd be the American deep state who make all the weapons. I mean, there's very few powers on the planet influential enough to say to every single politician, no, 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 we're going to war. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter who dies. It doesn't matter how expensive energy gets. We're going to war, and Putin is bad, and he has absolutely no reason to do what he's doing. He's a madman who must be stopped, and he's going to come and he's going to take Poland and Romania. He's coming for Cyprus too, probably. Black Sea Fleet. He's coming for everyone. This garbage, and it is garbage, a lie. There's only a few entities on the planet powerful enough to do that. And those entities are, of course, very rich. But I don't think it's primarily just about making more money for them. It's about getting more influence and more power. If BlackRock is trying to push Europe into war with Ukraine so we can get hold of Ukrainian land.
How do they get more influence, though, when they do that?
Well, that's a
Or
really
more
good...
power.
Okay, so again, primarily through the media. I mean, things have changed since Elon bought X. Things have changed with your videos. I'm genuinely a huge fan of yours. The things you are doing to show transparency inside the European Parliament are life-changing. Sir, truthfully, you're a hero. Before this, before you, there's not a single person on the planet who even cared about European Parliament. And I'm talking about me, someone who's interested in politics. If they said, have you seen European Parliament today? I'd be like, no, bunch of clowns. Nobody was even interested because we knew it was a joke. The average young person has no interest in this garbage, which allows them to get away with whatever they want to get away with, if they had any control at all, which perhaps you know more than me. But if BlackRock want to push us into war in Ukraine so they can have control over the fertile lands of Ukraine, this is not a conspiracy theory. This is a well-known fact. BlackRock will be behind lending money to Ukraine. It's a loan, so that if they win, Ukraine has to repay the loan. And of course, Ukraine has no money, doesn't even have a currency. So they repay it with assets. What's the only asset they have? Fertile land. Is BlackRock trying to do that to make more money? Perhaps, but they have a lot of money. Primarily, they're doing that, I believe, to have more control, more power. If they own all the fertile lands in Ukraine, they're going to have control over the next politician who's in charge of Ukraine, no matter who he is. And that's what they want. The whole world has only ever been a battle for power and influence. So how does BlackRock, how do these very deeply entrenched,
But
how do they control politicians? I'll answer.
How they are going to repay, let's say in a hypothetical war, Ukraine, their debt that they own to these countries with land?
What else are they going to repay it with? Taxes? They don't even have an economy.
I don't know. It's an interesting...
Yeah, they're going to repay it with land. They're going to repay it with their natural resources. And they're going to repay it, most importantly, with their compliance. They're going to repay it with the same way the mafia makes you obey. You owe us money, so you better do this. It doesn't matter if Zelensky lives or dies. The next person who comes in owes a lot of money to very powerful interests, and you better obey. So this is what I was saying earlier, how about it's not about money. They don't care about getting a return on their investment. They want the influence. And it's the same
But as a byproduct, they get even more return on their investment.
Of course they do.
Well.
Of course, absolutely. But primarily...
With more power as well and influence.
Absolutely. But primarily in their mind, they're not chasing money. They're not saying, oh, I'll give them $100 billion, I'll get $105 billion back. They'll say, I'll give them $100 billion, I'll have influence, I'll have control, I'll get them to do whatever I want, and I can rape them for money later. They have money. I'm talking from a person who doesn't have anywhere near $100 billion. I don't care about money. It's like, how much money to make them obey? Sure, done. Clean the house. That's all humans do. You hire a cleaner, you hire a taxi driver. What do you pay him for? Here's money, drive me where I want to go. Everyone buys influence. So they do it at a higher level. You asked, how do these people influence politicians? Well, before Twitter, before X, before social media, before people like you, primarily they do it through the media. You're a politician, you want to have a job. If you piss off the powers that be, the media will just come out and slander you to the end of earth like they've done to me. They'll say every day that you're a bad person, every day that you're morally corrupt, every day you've done bad things. They'll then at the same time funnel endless money in our world, to them a fraction of a penny, into your competitor's party. And then they'll say to everyone around you, if you support this guy, you're going to get wrecked like them. He's a sinking ship because he isn't obeying. If you support him, your campaign's going down the drain too. Before you know it, you have people who want to keep their jobs, who realize, this game's rigged. And that's how they buy the power and influence, buy the media. The media machine is nothing more than a propaganda arm for the deep state. All they do is push the narratives they want pushed. The media wasn't allowed to say COVID's not scary. It was instructed to scare the populace. That was the whole point of it, so that everybody complied. It's the same now, trying to scare everyone into believing that Putin's going to march into fucking Berlin. It is garbage, but that is their primary job. So that's how they control the politicians, via influence, the media, and financing. And that's why you can't seem to find a politician who will go against these things no matter what their population says. Politicians aren't working for their constituents anymore. They're working for the people who control them. They're working for the people who allow them to live or die. You look at a politician and say, why isn't he doing what his people wants? Because he doesn't work for his people. He works for the person who puts money in his bank. And it's not the people. And that's the unfortunate reality. And
it's changing this, and we're going to talk about this as well later. But I want to tell you kind of my theory on this.
I'd love to hear
from the inside. Maybe you are looking deeper than I am looking from the inside to have this answer, but my answer is never underestimate human stupidity. So in a way, it's like 70,000 bureaucrats.
Yep.
In Europe there that they are working in this institution. The system is so confusing, so above everyone. So they built something that it's incapable to run in a way without this, without the parties kind of having influence the parties from inside. So it's like the people, actually, I'm a European lover. I think Europe is a net positive.
I love Europe.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because you seem a Europe skeptic from what you are saying, a lot of the stuff that you are saying. But I think as a whole, if you put it on the scale, the stuff that is the benefits for Europe is a lot bigger. But anyways, so a lot of the times from this, these people are like very good people. Like you talk to them, they're good. But yeah, what you said, that I have a lot of like even. The president of the European Parliament, when you talk with her, Roberta Metsola, and a lot of other high ranks, they're so cool people, but they're just playing the game to be in their position.
Of course,
because they are very smart. They're super smart. They sit down. They're like you and me, chill. They're having jokes, making fun, and all this stuff. Yeah. But when there is time for them to do the right thing that the institution assumes the right thing, they are doing it. So it's not, but kind of the culture is like this, and also what you are saying about the democratic deficit, like a lot of the time, most of the time, we are not voting based on the voters of the European Union. Most of the times we go against it. And I proved this like a lot of times with the polls that I'm doing. 85%
want something and we vote against it.
85% of the people hate Ursula von der Leyen. They don't want her to get re-elected. Yep. And she ended up getting the majority. And why does it possible is because everything is happening behind closed doors.
Doesn't that argue my point though about influence? Doesn't that lend to my point about how there's shadow deals and shadow figures which are in charge of things and influence? And you just said people are cool in person, but they're trying to keep their jobs and they go along with the institution. Doesn't that just say what I said about how democracy is all garbage?
But I'm not sure if there is something behind. This is what I'm arguing. I'm just arguing that it's just how it is, so complicated for them to keep their job. So I'm not sure if there is a higher power from behind influencing everything.
I understand what you're saying. And as a professional...
I'm just seeing from the inside. This is what I saw.
As a professional, I have to sit here and cede credence to your insight. You know more than me. You've been in the European Parliament. It would be unprofessional for me to sit here and say you're wrong because you know more than me. However, I would argue, from a hypothetical point of view, if I wanted to give the illusion of power to the people, and I wanted to build a democratic system which couldn't truly go against the interests of the deep state and the matrix, but to make people believe they had power, would I make a simple and transparent system, or would I make a large bureaucracy, which is nearly impossible to trace and track and understand, and I would be able to hide behind the idea of stupidity? Oh, it's stupid and it's big and there's lots of people and no one really knows and there's so many. Oops, we all vote for exactly what the Matrix wants. Oops, we all vote for exactly what the Matrix wants. It's because it's big and complicated. To me, and I'm talking as a professional, if I was in charge of setting up that illusion, that's exactly what I would do. I would try and make people believe in the idea of stupidity. And I know it's actually a very comforting thought. Oh, they're not evil. They're just stupid. Well, if you're sitting in a trench in Ukraine as Russian shells drop down on your head, does that make you feel better? If you don't go and see your grandma die because it's against the law because of COVID, do you feel better? Oh, they're just stupid. They're not evil. Does that make you feel better? If a migrant arrives on a boat undocumented and stabs your little girl and kills her, because they don't close the borders. Do you feel better that they're just stupid instead of evil? It doesn't matter if they're stupid or not. They're acting with evil intention. Even if that was true, which I don't even believe it is true. I don't believe they're stupid. I believe this was set up on purpose so that they can deliberately convince the population. Because I hear it all the time. In Romania, they say it all the time, we say we have a beautiful country, but our politicians are stupid. Oh, they're so stupid, are they? They're so stupid to get hundreds of billions of dollars from the EU and be above prosecution and do whatever they want without you doing shit about it and selling you out. And they're the stupid one while you sit here working a job paying your taxes. They're stupid. No, they're not stupid. I don't believe this stupid garbage. I believe the system is set up on purpose to convince the population that they're just stupid and it's big and it's bureaucracy. When in fact, it's a deliberate smokescreen. And it's done that way because if they wanted to have control over European Parliament, which was genuinely democratic and genuinely transparent, they couldn't.
Well, I only talk what I see.
I respect it.
So
I respect it, sir. I respect it. And so do I. I respect it. And I know you know more things than I do. But I'm just trying to sit here and discussing power dynamics. I'm just sitting here talking how it would be very easy for them to control such a large bureaucratic system.
But let's dive a bit inside because a lot of the people, they don't understand exactly how the European Union functions. And I did, and it took me like 5 months. And I was living inside, asking questions 24/7 to kind of understand how it's working. So it's like so complicated. And we're going to come into, so is the European Commission, is Ursula von der Leyen. And there is 26 ministers that each countries promote. And this is kind of the head, is like the ministers of Europe. And this is the European Parliament, which are the elected people, 720 MEPs, members of the European Parliament, and it's the European Council. And the European Council is like all the ministers of all the countries in Europe. And these three things, they need to decide on, everything comes from above, from the European Commission. You know, if there's going to be a proposal about the rule, and we come in the European Parliament to change the bit, and like with the European Council to change the bit, and we need to agree both, and it takes years and years and years.
So quick question. I don't want to interrupt you because I want to understand this myself. But then couldn't they give the illusion of choice? Couldn't they, by omitting certain options and omitting certain paths, ensure that you always go down the same path anyway? For example, you just said the European Commission gives proposals to the other two branches of European government. So the European Commission could give an option to give 100 billion to Ukraine or 50 billion to Ukraine. So if you're anti-Ukraine war, you'll vote for less money to Ukraine, and then you give the illusion of choice. But of course, Ukraine still gets money and the war's still going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. It supports your argument, what you were saying before. Okay, let's go to continue a bit the education about the
I'm very interested, sir. I'm very interested.
And these are the three things. And also there is a fourth thing, all the presidents together deciding, the 27 presidents, deciding the foreign policy and the big stuff, broad scale. But also is the European Commission, which is the executive power to execute all this stuff. So this is a system that is so complicated that even if you need to be the president of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, and also is like the High Commissioner we call here, and also it's kind of impossible to be in that position because how you get it, like not a normal European citizen can get inside that position. Like Elon Musk was saying in a tweet, like Fidias for president of the EU, but it's kind of impossible to be in that position.
So how does she end up there?
So that's the question. That's the question. So how she ends up there is a deal behind closed door, behind the biggest parties in the European Parliament, which they propose here, kind of. So in the European Parliament, we have the groups. We have 7 political groups: the right, the left, and all this stuff. And the people who have the majority is the Socialists and Democrats and the APP. When they decide together about something, so they sit down. They say, "I will give you this. You give me this," behind closed doors. And then they decide, "Okay, and we're going to put your one here, my one here, your one here." No transparency. And they decide kind of who will rule. And then it comes to the parliament, even if I vote against, they decided before, so behind closed doors, so it's pre-decided because it's the two biggest parties. And this is how we get to the president of the European Parliament is the least transparent thing.
Democratic process ever.
Yes.
Which goes into my argument for influence. You know, I grew up in a rough neighborhood, let's say. And I always was pretty good at reading people, I believe. So I don't understand the European process the way you do. But the reason I said, and it takes gall for me to do this, for me to sit down with a member of European Parliament, and when I've never been in European Parliament, and tell you that your process isn't democratic, that takes a lot of balls to do because you know better than me. So where would I even get this kind of inkling from? You know, there's been times in my life where I've sat in a room with a man and I just knew he was going to try and hurt me. He didn't do anything, I just knew it. I could see it on him. And when I see Ursula, when I see the few members of European Parliament brave enough to tell her that she's hated, when I see people screaming that she refuses to do what the population wants, and I see the smug look on her face, she knows it doesn't matter. She knows it doesn't matter what the people want. She knows it doesn't matter how many people are mad at her. She knows it doesn't matter because there's something else going on. And the parliament have fuck all to do with it, and the population have nothing to do with it, and everyone can scream. And the look on her face is like looking at a screaming toddler, upset that they can't have a little piece of candy, because she knows the deal's already been done. That's the truth of the European Parliament. And I knew that before I spoke to you by looking at her face. Look at her when people say, why are you doing this? You're destroying Europe. She feels very calm. She doesn't care. She's working for someone else, and she ain't working for the European people. That's a fact.
No, but it's interesting because I met a lot of, I have a lot of friends that they spoke with her a lot of the times and they're friends with her. So she's, if she's a puppet, let's say, if she is, which, but people told me that she actually has some agenda, like about gender equality,
Great.
about the renewables energies and all this stuff.
Oh, great!
Too.
So she has.
So she has some personal belief, and we see her kind of in a policy of Europe. I don't know if that's her actual. If she has influence over other people, and this is how she formed her agenda, but this is what the stuff that she's passionate about.
Well, I have two arguments, two responses to that. Ursula has agendas. Firstly, the two agendas you just said are destroying Europe. The gender equality push and DEI and getting rid of our energy efficiency is destroying Europe. So her agendas are negative. That's the first answer. Because it doesn't, I mean, getting rid of nuclear power and getting rid of Russian gas is bad.
I need to ask you, first of all, what is your opinion, a bit, because it's a very controversial, what do you mean about gender equality?
Because I don't think,
and like your opinion about
of
this.
course.
What
I think that
but a lot of the people don't like, a lot of people don't like you in the European
that's a shame.
Union.
That's a shame.
Maybe in the United States it's a bigger number of people that they like you because you are more on the core values of the United States. We're a bit more, I think, leftist somehow in Europe as a whole.
Which is why you're losing to America, by the way.
And something.
Which is why you're being destroyed by the American government, by the way. You do understand that Europe is a scapegoat.
You live
for the
in
American.
Europe.
I know.
We are getting destroyed.
I can't
Don't
leave
put
yet.
yourself.
I can't leave yet, sir. But I'm telling you, the European continent is being decimated by its ally, America, because they understand that Europe's now self-immolating. And it's self-immolating by these leftist policies. So let's talk about renewable energy first. They got rid of Russian gas. They refused to build nuclear. They want to build all these solar panels in some fantastic dream. Volkswagen shuts down. German economy shrinking. They can't afford cheap energy. You can't do anything without energy. If I don't eat and I can't move my hands, how do I podcast? How do I do anything? How do I pay my bills? You can't do anything without energy. And Europe is currently in an energy crisis. America doesn't have that problem. The Middle East doesn't have that problem. China doesn't have that problem. Only Europe has that problem. And they're going to sit there talking about net zero garbage while India emits endless emissions daily, not caring. You're simply going to lose. So what Ursula wants to do, and maybe her personal views, they are net negative for Europe. Then we'll talk about gender equality.
No, let's explain to the people a bit more. So Ursula von der Leyen and a lot of the policies of Europe is to become green in Europe by 2050, to have zero net. But this, because they forced it too quickly, everyone in the European Parliament, they say that the Green Deal, which was the big thing, it was hurting our businesses. Now it's like common sense, and everyone agrees this.
So we're going broke to try and push for this net zero while the rest of the world doesn't.
Not everyone.
While the rest of the world doesn't. And then you have to ask yourself, do they care about net zero or do they care about control? Why are they trying to push net zero? Do they think that if they increase your taxes, the sun stops being hot? Is that what they believe? If they think they just bankrupt all the large industry, that the trees will grow bigger? Or are they trying to control everybody? All these things are Trojan horsed. They come along with very fancy, very clever language, and they Trojan horse it. Everyone loves the environment. Do you like trees? Yeah, I like trees.
Yes.
Okay, your taxes have gone up. Whoa.
Yes.
Why have my taxes gone up? Because I like trees. Now, if you're against the Green Deal, then you don't like the environment. You want the fish to die. When of course you don't. You just don't trust these politicians.
You are right about this. Can I give you an example from our recent vote that we did? And
Please do.
And we can get into the also in gender equality and all this stuff in the current state of Europe. But recently, like 4 days ago, we voted on one thing in the European Parliament. And like, by the way, guys, there is a lot of things that that is good about the European Union, but because I love the European Union, I want to say the bad things to improve the European Union. So I'm not saying from a bad place.
Yeah.
So it was recently we voted about so this is how they do, exactly how you said. So we voted one thing, so they found 3 people that were kind of harassed in Crimea.
Yeah.
And they went to jail for the wrong reasons and all this stuff. And
why don't they do Romania jail for the wrong reasons? Hey, Ursula.
Yes, exactly this. So they found these 3 people. They put a face to them, and like these 3 people, we want freedom of them and all this stuff. But in the same text, is like against Russia. Yep. So they make you influence. So they find the 3 examples. They have 0 examples about what mistakes Zelensky did and oppressed some people in Ukraine. So they put a face to it, and it's like of course I want these people to be okay, and I don't want this to happen to them. What do I vote? But do I vote also for? And this is kind of how they vote for their things. It's interesting. So this was the resolution that we did.
That's right. They Trojan horse it. So if you vote against it, you don't care about the 3 people. But if you vote for it, then you're going to do some insanity to Russia. And they do this with the climate change. Do you care about the trees? Do you care about the fish? Well, yes, I do. Okay, give up your car, don't leave your house, and pay more taxes. What? And that doesn't even fix the initial problem in the first place. That's why all of these policies are Trojan horsed. When you said Ursula has her personal views and one of them is climate change and net zero, to me, that's a negative. And I have to go back a couple times because I said earlier that I would answer that question 2 ways. And let me give the other answer to that so we can continue down the conversation. I said there's 2 ways to that. When I said that Ursula is controlled, and I could tell by her face, and my Europol warrant is probably coming soon, everybody, because I've had a few of them. But when I said she's probably controlled, and you said she has her personal views and those things, I can answer it 2 ways. The other way I can answer it is she can have her personal views on the unimportant subjects. This is the whole big point of the big bureaucracy, like I said earlier. There are certain subjects that they can't disagree with. So behind you is a Christmas tree. She can have her opinions on how we decorate the Christmas tree.
But I will argue
but she can't have
the same thing with Donald Trump, my friend.
We'll talk about that in a second. But Ursula, in her position, is allowed to have her opinions on how we decorate the Christmas tree. But she's not allowed to have an opinion if there's a tree at all. The tree will be there. And that cannot bend and cannot break, and she cannot talk against it. We will go to war. How we do it, maybe she's allowed to talk about the details. But the basis idea must remain. This is important. The second thing I want to talk about, because we have a few tangents to go off on, is gender equality. And I'm largely misunderstood in the world because I love all people. Male, female, everybody. However, I do stand up for men's rights because I think men are massively underrepresented. I know that men suffer more depression. Men suffer more suicide. Men are constantly accused of crimes they have not done. Men die in war.
You are one of the few people that they identified and labeled this problem.
I'm one of the only people who cares.
Before I was not like, man, boys have, and I was actually, to your defense that you identified this, I was actually